The Epic price reduction update is here, and I'm sure you've all been waiting for it.
The Epic price reduction is here, and I'm sure you've all been waiting for it. As you're so quiet. I gotta just turn up my headset, I suppose, but... Yeah, this is a new headset. Anybody didn't see the last video. It sounds fine? Okay. Yeah, that's... Okay. This is just me then. It's just me then. Yeah, I did get a new headset, so it's... Well, I say new, but... It's not new.
Epic mechs and weapons prices have been reduced by about 50 to 70% of their previous prices.
50
This
to 70%,
is a big W from Plarium. I hope we see legendary items next. In this video, I'm going to cover the new prices for all the items and tell them if they are worth it for you now that they are cheaper. Just keep in mind, it's important to remember that it is okay to sometimes purchase a bad item if it's the cheapest way for you to get your tier stars you need to progress to the next tier. I've also placed chapters on the video.
Hold on. What did he say?
Cheaper. Just keep in mind, it's important to remember that it is okay to sometimes purchase a bad item if it's the cheapest way for you to get your tier stars you need to progress to the next tier.
Especially if you're not, like, yeah, if you're not going to use it anyway. A lot of the times, especially like weapons, most of the time, low grade weapons, you shouldn't use them, but you can buy them. Like I bought like rare weapons right after the price reduction. I bought like rare ones, even though they cost 8 coins. It was really cheap just to get to the next tier. Like, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Because I knew I wasn't going to use it anyway.
I've also placed chapters on the video so you can just skip to the item you're wondering about, so feel free to do that. So first up is Zephyr. Zephyr's price.
Sure. I don't see chapters in the video. I don't see chapters at all. Huh. I call that false advert. Wait, no, a sec. Well, YouTube just failed, I guess. But there are technically timestamps in the description. He's not wrong.
This has been reduced by 50% from 375,000 credits to 186,000. Though Zephyr has a strong ability where it stuns EMPs all the enemies in a 30-meter radius for 3 seconds. EMP is basically the strongest effect in the game, so this is very powerful.
Easily the strongest effect.
However, Zephyr's extremely slow, 18 kph, which is slower than some tanks, and it has very low HP, so it's going to get destroyed almost instantly.
What is slower than 18 kph? Guardian? Brickhouse Arachnos? This is basically it. Why is he using Cryo 16 on Sentinel? Everyone knows Cryo 16 needs to be on Arachnos. If you go by Mimicker ability, Chungus is still a tank. Yeah. Sure.
There is the legendary Zephyr Pulse Range implant, which increases your stun range up to 45 meters at max level, which does make it pretty decent throughout the mid-game, but in general, you're going to want to avoid this mech. When you just unlock it, it is pretty decent since it's for credits, and it can be okay to run for a little while, but you should never upgrade this mech unless you really want to run it with that legendary implant.
I disagree. I think until you get Surge, Zephyr being your only EMP mech is extremely valuable. It is, I could not really effectively counter, reliably anyway, like Seekers and Nomads without Zephyr. So, I think that he's correct. Zephyr's best used with the Legendary Implant. But when you first get it, it's going to be, and he's also correct, when you first get it, it's going to be a lot stronger than later on. But I think you should use it through Tier 5 and all the way through Tier 6, and to really only stop when you get Surge. That's about it. Because otherwise, it's just, it's so valuable to have EMP. EMP is such a broken status effect. You kind of need it.
Redeemer's price has been reduced by 50% from 3,750 A coins to 1,865 A coins. It is a pretty low HP mech with not great speed for a scout. It doesn't have a dash like Surge or Nomad, but it does have the backtrack.
By speed, he means like general mobility, not like mech speed. Because the Redeemer does have 29 kph, which is the fastest you can get, like base speed, but like general speed includes like abilities and stuff. I hope he mentions Hangar Showdown.
Backtrack to where you were 10 seconds ago and remove effects based off your rank. However, to remove things like EMP or Daze, which are the more powerful effects and more important ones to remove, your Redeemer literally has to be maxed out. So this thing doesn't become really powerful until max rank, where at that point it's going to get outclassed by the meta Revoker scouts running around the game. So in general, yes, Redeemer isn't bad, but it's not like the meta or anything. Only get it if you want to have fun with it. You can certainly do well and make some cool plays with it, but it's not great to get. Cheetah's price.
Okay, he did not mention. He's absolutely correct about everything if you ignore Hangar Showdown. Hangar Showdown Redeemer is an incredibly strong one to get in Hangar Showdown because everything gets automatically maxed, right? For that mode. Also, these these helix, right? What the heck am I looking at, bro? This thing's taking a woody. But yeah, so he's correct for the most part, but I would say that he left out an important detail that probably you should you could get it, and it would be very, very good for Hangar Showdown. I currently use it in my Hangar Showdown. I'd never use Redeemer normally. Like CPC, don't use it. 5v5, don't use it. But it's a really, really strong one. It's like one of my top 3 in Hangar Showdown. Easily. Better than my Aegis, better than my Panther. So, it's a good note to make. Not necessarily saying that it's something you need to get, but it's something you definitely could get if you struggle with Hangar Showdown or something like that.
Price has been reduced by 65% from 3,750 A coins to 1,305 A coins. So Cheetah is not a good mech at all. It's very squishy, very slow, and its ability, the mines, they do a lot of damage, but they're just really hard to hit onto a player. You can get bots with them sometimes, but for the most part, Cheetah's just a meme mech. It's just there for fun. I'm glad Plarium reduced it by more. It's pretty cheap now. I wish it was for credits, but hey, take what we can get. So yeah, only get this mech if you want to play it for fun. It's not good. It's just for the memes. Aegis is...
Fully agree. No notes. Same is true for Sentinel, by the way. Yeah, that's true, although Sentinel at max does not really gain any value. Yeah. You're technically correct. Like, it does gain the max perk from Hangar Showdown, but it doesn't really gain any value from Hangar Showdown. I guess those are two different things.
Price has been reduced by 50% from 3,750 A coins to 1,865 A coins once again. Aegis is a very powerful mech. It throws at a dome that protects you and your teammates with a certain durability on the dome, and you guys can fire through it, but the enemies can't, so you're fully protected. It's great for fighting with your team, synergizing with teammates, whoever you're playing with, or even with your bots. It's definitely a powerful mech. It has pretty good HP. It's not like super tanky, but with the dome it becomes pretty hard to kill, and it's definitely one I would recommend you pick up, especially with the reduced price. It's a solid mech for your hangar. Panther's price has been...
Okay. If you are going to go through Tier 5 and Tier 6, buying one mech from each of them, those two mechs are Orion and Aegis. Aegis is so unreasonably effective, especially at lower stages of the game. When you unlock it, it is the best mech out there. The best mech that you can get, period. The dome is not just a thing that has HP. The dome is a thing that blocks all status effects, including EMP, which is incredibly useful. And if you know how to play an Aegis well, if you stand on one side of the so status effects can't pass through the dome, essentially, and that's it's an important note for what I'm about to say. So because status effects can't pass through the dome, something like a surge that dashes at you, if you position yourself in such a way to where you're on one side of the dome, and then they dash at you and they hit you, so long as there's that shield between two of you, then it'll dash, it'll hit you, it'll do the EMP, but you're not going to be affected. Its EMP is wasted. And at that point, it becomes the Surge's HP and damage output versus the Aegis HP and damage output, which usually results in the Aegis winning. It's extremely valuable. As extremely valuable. And I don't think there's any... Like, he didn't say that anything that's incorrect, but I do think that he kind of undersold Aegis a little bit, maybe.
Been reduced by only 35%, the least of any item in this video. Kind of strange, but it's from 3,750 A coins to 2,425 A coins.
Yeah, it is weird that the Panthers, they made Panther the most expensive one.
With 32 max energy capacity. It also throws out a barrier that you can shoot through, but the enemies can't. It's not as protective as the dome, but it doesn't have durability like the dome, so it's kind of a trade-off. It's good for kind of making rotations because you can cover a whole lane, but in general, Aegis is better near the end game. It's great for synergizing with teammates. It just ends up being a little better. Unless you need a...
I disagree. I think Panther's actually better endgame, but I'm flipping it. So I think I think Panther's better endgame, but Aegis is better earlier in mid-game. I think Panther's better endgame simply because its barrier has infinite HP, and because you can throw it out to, let's say, a beacon and offer protection for, like on this map, for example, right? So like you could be around here and then throw your barrier out to the beacon, which offers you protection while you go out to grab the center beacon. And you're not going to see a lot of Panthers late game, but I think Panther's slightly more valuable than Aegis late game, personally.
A 32 energy, high energy capacity mech. I wouldn't get Panther. If you want one, go ahead and get it. It's
Panther's
solid.
energy capacity is what costs the most?
Super squishy and isn't great in the end game.
Yeah, but then, like, why is Cheetah cost less? Like, you could make that assumption, but, like, it doesn't really hold up to the other things. Like, some things cost less, some things cost more. Why would Panther cost more if it has more energy if other things cost less, but they don't have less energy? And, you know, maybe that is the case. It is the only one that has the hot 32. It is the only heavy mech out of the epics. But I wouldn't necessarily be quick to adopt that.
It's hard to get a legendary one without paying real money, and you could use something like Guardian from the rare mechs, but in general, I would just get it if you need that high energy capacity. Orion's price has been reduced by 50% from 3,758 coins to 1,860.
What did he say about? Sorry, I'm kind of
great in the end game, but if you need a heavy mech, it's hard to get a legendary one without paying real money, and you could use something like Guardian from the rare mechs, but in general, I would just get it if you need that high energy capacity. Orion.
Did my boy... It's just, maybe I'm misunderstanding. Did my boy just recommend people use Guardian instead of Panther? I don't know if maybe I just kind of am misunderstanding that. Ruffles versus BMP. Look, okay, look, it wouldn't be a versus if this man wasn't going out here saying that instead of Panther, you should get Guardian. Like, or you should upgrade Guardian. I don't know if that's what he's trying to say, but that's what it sounded like he was saying. Anyway, my take on this. So I'm not necessarily going here to, like, bash it. What I'm just, like, watching this, and we can kind of figure out what he has to say, and then I'm just going to give my opinion on whatever. My opinion is always going to be a little bit different from his opinion. You can choose which one you think is more accurate. Panther is a good one. BMP in general, I think his TLDR is, like, Panther's decent. It has good energy capacity, but there's not a whole lot of reason to get it because Aegis is kind of better, and Panther also costs more. And I think that TLDR is a thing that I largely agree with. That is a thing that I largely agree with, because especially since it costs more, like, and Panther's not even that good. Like, I have Panther on my account, right? And it's nice. I like it. I use it. I have double Graviton 10s on it, and it does really well. But my Aegis is probably still better. So, like, would I spend more to get something that's arguably worse? I mean, you can, because they're both strong. But if you don't need it, then there's not really a reason to get it. So, yeah, to a large extent, I agree with the TLDR. But, no, I don't think that the main benefit of Panther is the energy capacity. I think the main benefit of Panther is the invincible barrier and the reach of the barrier. You have protection. The protection of Aegis is extremely isolated. It keeps you from moving. The protection of Panther is a wall, which allows you to move from place to place while keeping safety. And so I think that's a decent distinction. And there are certain maps where I would certainly prefer a Panther over an Aegis. Even if I was using the exact same weapons, right? There are certain maps that I would prefer a Panther over an Aegis, simply because of the ability. But overall, yeah, I think yeah. That's about it.
Orion's price has been reduced by 50% from 3,758 coins to 1,865 coins. So Orion has good speed, but it is pretty squishy, but its ability is really...
Panther's HP is so low, though. Yeah, you're correct. That's why you want to use it at range. It also has no status effect protection. So you wouldn't necessarily use them in the same situations against the same types of enemies. But I'm thinking, like, a map like this, for example, that he's on right now. A map like this would be more ideal for an Aegis. Because, especially if you're going to move up to this center area, You have people potentially on the right side, potentially below you, potentially in front of you, potentially on the left side. There's a lot of potential areas that people could be coming at you from. You probably want an Aegis Dome, and you don't necessarily need. You have enough natural cover on this map that you don't necessarily need a Panther barrier to get you from place to place. But let's take something like the map that he was on when he was using Panther even. Let me find this right here. Exclusively, if, let's say, the enemies are...
Panther. If you want one, go ahead and get it. It's solid. It's definitely super squishy and isn't great in the endgame, but if you need a heavy mech, it's hard to get...
Exactly what this guy did. You move from your spawn point with the barrier over to that side building, and then from that side building you have an angle on everybody else, and there's so much open space on that map that is incredibly difficult for people to run up on you without you having some time to react. So if you have a decent weapon, if you have some decent weapons on there, you can absolutely do a lot of work with that. So there's not necessarily... Yeah, the HP pool is less, but HP doesn't necessarily matter. Like, what are the top mechs in the game? There are the top out of the top 5 meta mechs, 4 of them are scouts. Like, I don't think HP is the most important factor here.
But it is pretty squishy, but its ability is really strong. The death mark, it stasises the enemy and gives them the death mark effect, which then doubles the damage and gives 50% more. It's technically back damage.
It's not death mark, it's hunter's mark, but understandable because I keep calling it death mark as well. Death mark is a thing from War Robots.
Plus 50% more damage. So you basically do a ton of damage, and it will boost your weapons to an insane level. You can do so much damage. It's great with snipers against mods because it does shield pierce as well. And again, it stasis them to slow them down so that they can't escape the death mark, the hunter's mark. Orion is a great mech, and now that it's cheaper, I definitely recommend you pick it up.
Fun fact, I have a role in Discord called Hunter's Mark. That my mods have orders to give that role to whoever's being a really big pain in the butt, so that if they cause a problem again and they have the Hunter's Mark role on them, we just ban them. That's a fun fact.
I highly recommend the combo I use on my free-to-play account. Dual Railgun 8s on Orion does wonders for my hanger on there, so I highly recommend you try that. But you can put any weapon that you kind of feel needs a damage boost and just use it on Orion, and it's going to do fairly well. Sentinel.
I would specifically recommend ranged weapons, but in general, he's not wrong. Any weapon can do relatively decently on Orion. Almost any weapon. War Robots player confirmed, brother. I played that game for like 3 or 4 years. That was the game that I played before Mech Arena, so I remember way too many things about War Robots. Like, way more than I probably should.
Sentinel's price has been reduced by $6 for my hanger on there, so I highly recommend you try that. But Sentinel's price has been reduced by 65% from 375,000 credits to 130,600 credits, so it's very cheap now, but Sentinel is not a good mech at all. It's very weak. It doesn't have enough HP to tank many things. It's going to get destroyed by Revokers. It just has a shield just like Ares. It's basically just Ares with more durability on its shield and more HP. Yeah, definitely don't upgrade.
A rank 4 Ares is better than a rank 4 Sentinel. Which is sad, but it's true. The Ares ability is just so much better than Sentinel ability is.
Until you get something like Aegis to put in there, that's a lot better. So it's not necessarily a bad idea to get this mech, but definitely don't upgrade it unless you want it just for fun. It's not good. And
it's really, Sentinel's really the only type of thing. You should only really get it if you want it for like progression or something. I don't know. There's not really a reason to get Sentinel, I don't think. Outside of the fact that it's cheap. But Aegis you get into your 5, Sentinel you get into your 6. So like,
our last mech, which is Killshot, has been reduced by 50% from 3,750 A-coins to 1,865 A-coins once again. So Killshot is a scout mech with super high speed. It's very fast and has a dash with a very short cooldown, so it has excellent speed. However, its HP is super low. It's very squishy, and it does do like extra dash damage if you hit the enemy just like Nomad does or Slingshot. But since you're so squishy, you're just going to die instantly. It's not usually a good idea to fight close quarters with this mech anymore. So in general, I would say just get this mech if you need some speed and a dash mech for your beacon captures. Basically, for CPC, you kind of need to have a dash mech, at least one in your hangar for beacon capturing, especially near the beginning of the match. So if you need that in your hangar,
He's not wrong. Yeah. Killshot's one that, honestly, I wouldn't get it personally, obviously, but screw Killshot. But for most people, I think for most people, it's a good idea to get Killshot just because it's the fastest mech in the game. Which, like, he didn't really say that, but it is true technically, including the ability. It's the fastest mech in the game, along with Slingshot. But, like, you may as well get it when you're in tier 6. Because otherwise you're, like, upgrading Slingshot, which is, like, I don't know if that's really any better. But, yeah, it's a nice thing to have. It's a nice thing to have. A lot of people would get a lot of benefit from a thing like that.
Here, get this mech, but honestly, I would just go from Slingshot straight to Surge. You just save your 2,000 A coins now, it'll be. But if you want that beacon capturing power, go ahead and get it. Now,
Slingshot straight to Surge. Well, here's the thing, though. Killshot costs how much?
On to the dash mech, at least we need to be a super 5A coins. Upgrade it unless you want it just for fun. It's not good. And our last mech, which is Killshot, has been reduced by 50% from 3,750 A coins to 1,865.
1,865, he says. I have... wait. This is my upgrade sheet that I made for the common, uncommon, and rare stuff. I need to add the epic, but I don't have the data for that yet. I have manually freaking typed in all of these numbers by going to the test server and upgrading everything one by one. You're freaking welcome. But here's the thing. Here's the max right here. A Slingshot would cost, to get it to rank 6, 1,600 A coins to get to rank 6. Which I think it would need to be rank 6 to be even kind of... I think it would need to be rank 6 in order to be relatively the same stats as Killshot. You'd also be able to put mods on it, so that's nice. But 1,600 A coins plus whatever it costs, plus the... plus all of these credits added up with the exception of rank 6. That's just to get it to max. So, like, each of these little things is the amount of total credits it costs for that rank. So the entire rank 2 costs 12,000, etc. So it's like 170, 80,000, you know, like 180,000. 180,000 plus 1,600 A-coins. Is it better to get Slingshot, or is it better to just get Killshot? I don't know.
A-coins once again. So Killshot is a scout mech.
Slingshot better, no debate. Yeah.
It's very fast and has a tip for your beacon. You go from Slingshot power, go ahead, every single weapon. Now on to the weapons. I'm not going to be listing the prices for every single energy variant of every single weapon. That would just waste your and my time.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
I'll just say somewhere around the average percentage the weapon set was reduced by. Arc Torrent's price has been reduced by about 70%, so Arc Torrents are...
You could also just, like, list the prices on the screen with, like, a text thing. Little stuff.
A close quarters weapon, but they're just simply outclassed by both Revoker and Ember Gun, so absolutely do not get the Arc Torrents. They are terrible. The Missile Rack...
100% correct, yeah, don't buy Arc Torrent.
Prices have been reduced by about 70%. Missile Racks aren't terrible, but they are pretty outclassed by the Storm Rack, which is basically the far better legendary variant. The Missile Racks need a lot of implants to succeed. You have to have, like, reload, damage, and radius implants. And you
don't really need radius, but he's kind of correct. The main thing I would say about Missile Rack is simply just that, like, it's kind of similar to, like, Revoker and Ember Gun. Ember Gun's not necessarily an actively bad weapon, but you have access to a better one. You have access to Revoker, and there's no reason for you to not use Revoker. But then, if you're going to use Ember Gun, then you're probably already using Revoker, so you'd use Ember Gun on your second close quarters build. What do you need a second close quarters build for? I think for most people, especially if you're even considering epic weapons, you probably don't have another... You probably don't... Like, none of your mechs probably need another close quarters weapon. It's the same thing with Missile Rack and Storm Rack. Decent weapons, both of them. Both of them are decent weapons. But if you already have Storm Rack, there's kind of no reason to get Missile Rack, because you don't really need two of that kind of build. unless you get like a legendary Stormwreck reload implant, then it becomes like a lot more of a brawler build, and you use them a lot differently after that point. And so yeah, maybe you could do that. But in general, like it's basically the same thing. You don't really need 2 of them. So yeah. I think that's the main thing. It's like not even necessarily the fact that it's bad, but just the fact that you should by that point already have something that's better. And there's not really a need to double down on that type of thing. I would, to be honest, skip reload over radius. Kind of like the 16 specifically, but then again, you'd only use them for fun over Storm 16. Missile Rack 16 is actually really solid. It's actually really solid. I've used Missile Rack 16 Outlaw competitively, and it worked well. But yeah, like it does good damage. It has a lot of rockets, and it has really high accuracy. So it's, it's not bad. But again, like it's like for most people, I don't think there's much point. And of course, you can get Storm Rack 16 with credits. So like. Yeah, the only reason you'd use Missile Rack 16 is because you have your Storm Rack 16s on something else, I guess.
You have to rank them up to get a better radius, unlike the Storm Racks again, so don't use these weapons unless you want them for fun. They can do okay, but basically just Storm Racks are better and cheaper. Literally, the Storm Rack 10 costs credits, and you can just get dual copies of that really easily. Stasis Beams...
Dual copy, maybe not so much, but yeah, he's right. You can get Storm Rack 6 and 10 for credits, and yeah, there's no point. If the Missile Racks were credits, then maybe it would be worth it, but this... the only one that is the 6, and it's just not worth it.
By about 75%. The Stasis Beams are terrible. Never get them. They're just for memes. Nade launcher prices
and he leaves it at that. Absolutely agree.
70%. So the nade launchers are pretty good. They do rely on back damage and side damage to do a lot of damage, but when you're hitting for critical back damage, they do shred people up, and they destroy mods pretty well. Make sure you have a mech that can fight at close quarters for them, because that's when they really shine, when you can make sure to hit all your shots and do back damage, because they do have a fairly slow shot speed. But
close quarters, no, not really. Nade launchers, in the ideal habitat, are an anti-camper weapon. So what you do with it, I need to make like a specific like nade launcher specifically, like a guide to how to use these the two nade weapons. So they have an auto adjusting feature that people don't really know how it works. BMP is saying nade launchers are a close quarters weapon. Now, if you don't really understand how they work, then yes, you're not going to hit anything unless you're close quarters or relatively close range, like maybe 60 meters. They're an anti-camper weapon. They have an auto-adjusting aiming feature where, look, you have to pay attention to where your cursor is specifically. Where your cursor is, that's where you're shooting. That's where your nades are shooting. Now you might think, well, obviously, it's gonna try to shoot it. Like, no, but I'm being dead serious. Here's the thing: if you're aiming at the cover, if your cursor is on the cover itself, your nades are gonna auto adjust to fire straight at where your cursor is. So it's gonna fire at the cover. In order to make it fire over something, like in this case, if you wanted to fire at that guy, let's just assume both of them are standing still. If you wanted to fire at that guy, what he needs to do is he needs to put his cursor over the enemy hitbox, at which point the weapon will recognize that the cursor is over an enemy hitbox. It will auto-adjust the weapon's range and fire so that it hits that point on the map at that range. So when you miss a bunch of shots at long range, or if you miss a bunch of shots when you're firing at somebody from behind cover, when you're firing at someone who's like, if you're firing over an obstacle or something like that, you realize that you're missing a bunch of your shots. A lot of them are going into the wall. A lot of them are going into the floor, whatever, is because your cursor is not directly over their hitbox. So the way that I get around this most of the time is by aiming my cursor straight up into the air, just into the distance. Make sure that it's not make sure that you're not aiming at like a building or something like that. You're just aiming up into the air so that your cursor is pointed as far away as possible. This will guarantee that your nades are going to attempt to fire at the longest range. So long as you know what your range is, then you know where they're going to land. And by doing that, you can create a carpet bomb area on whatever point of the map that you want, which is essentially a helix rack that doesn't require a lock. So it is extremely useful as an anti-camper weapon, especially on certain maps. Now that you understand how the nades and cryo aiming system works, yeah, the way that you get around it, the way that you ensure that you're firing where you want to fire, is by first understanding what your range is, what your max range is, and then guaranteeing that you're firing at that max range. And then you can fire wherever you want, so long as you position yourself correctly. And you're not going to get this weird situation where, in order to be effective, you pretty much exclusively have to be relatively close range, which is what BMP is saying. But he's not technically wrong, but he's neglecting the main point of nades.
But if you have that, it could definitely be a good build for your hangar, and you can get something like dual 10s. Definitely a strong build. I have that on my free-to-play account, and they do very well for me. Helix rack prices have been reduced by about 65%. So Helix racks are not good against mods at the end game, and also Eclipse, of course, fully counters them with the Stealth Surge as well in some cases. So I wouldn't recommend investing heavily into them. Don't get the high energy variants. Don't upgrade them or anything too much. But if you want to get them right when you unlock them, especially the Helix 8 is only like 95,000 credits now, it could be a pretty solid build for you. Make sure you have some implants though. They are pretty implant heavy, because since they have low DPS, you need to get a damage and a reload implant, and preferably a range implant as well. Often you're going to want to run all 3 implants with this weapon, but yeah,
if
just
you
get
can,
the
you're going to need it.
8s and use them for a little while. Don't upgrade them or get the 12 or 16 or anything like that.
If the 10 or 12 Helix rack, if they were credits, then you probably should get them. But I think he's right, because by the time you unlock Helix 16, you unlock Helix 16 at tier 7. By that point, there's no reason to be using Helix rack. But high energy, specifically high energy Helix racks are really good, because you can put them on like a freaking Paragon, right? You could upgrade your Paragon a bunch. It costs basically nothing. You have a bunch of energy capacity to work with. You slap on some Helix racks, massive damage. Especially like early on, the like 3,000-4,000 SP range where I'm at. That sort of thing does really pretty darn well. But yeah, they do cost 8 coins, so it's kind of still not worth it, but yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So that's probably up to you, but I wouldn't recommend getting them. Wouldn't recommend getting like the 10 or the 12 or the 16 really, but yeah, it's not the worst idea.
Fusion cannon prices have been reduced by about 75%. The fusion cannons are terrible. Never use them. I don't know why they made the bloom and damage on this weapon so bad. It's just garbage. Ember gun prices have been reduced by about 65%.
That's true.
This is an interesting one. Embers by themselves aren't good against mods, against like ML mods or the Galvanic Hull. The weaken effect that the Embers apply, is not good against Galvanic. However, if you combine that weaken effect with a Revoker, you can boost the Revoker's damage, and let's say you had like dual Revoker 10s, you can then put Revoker plus Ember gun on 2 different builds, so you can have 2 Revoker builds that both deal pretty good damage. It's not...
You should just be using double Revoker 10 and 6. Double Revoker 6s works better than a Revoker 10 and an Ember 6. And I know this because I tried it. Like, I just so we're completely clear, I do not think, unless for whatever magical reason you don't have Revoker 6, I do not think there's any scenario in which an Ember gun becomes a recommended thing that, like, the thing that I would ever recommend that you use. Unless, again, unless for whatever random reason you do not happen to have Revoker 6, there's no reason to use Ember gun. I don't think you need it. You can get the Ember gun 6 for credits, and you get that before you even unlock Revoker 6. So that's, it's a good one to get. Obviously, you should probably own it. It's one of the better epic weapons, but there's no reason to use it past the Revoker point.
Quite as good as dual Revokers, but it'll do the job until you can get more Revokers in your hangar. So definitely get like the Ember 8 and 6. Those can be worth it, but don't invest to high energy variants, because Revokers are just way
8
better
and
in
6 You don't even really need the
RPG
8.
prices have been reduced by about 75%. These are just worse versions of things like Missile or Stormax. I wouldn't invest into them. They're not very good. They don't do well against any type of mods. Cryo Launcher prices have been reduced by...
Yeah, Voltaic RPG is just kind of like, I don't even know what the point of it is. It's not great. Why would I have Revoker 6? Well, I don't know, because it's like one of the most disgusting weapons in the game, and it's really easy to get. And you should probably not buy Voltaic RPG. Yeah, that's what BMP said.
By about 75%. So cryos are similar to nades. They're both barrage. Cryos are basically a little less damage, but longer range nades with a stasis effect. So if you get them stasis down, you can then hit for huge back damage. Again, with this weapon, you're going to want to aim for that back damage with the radius. But again, the shot speed is pretty low. So these nades are very similar. You can also combo them together. People run like Panther with nade 10 and cryo 10. But yeah,
the only reason they do that is not for any tactical reason. It's literally just because both the I think both of those weapons cost credits, and they don't have either of them rank 6. Like, it's not a conscious choice that they make, like, oh yeah, this is a good thing to do. It's literally just like, I have both of these 10 energy weapons, and I don't have either of them duplicated, so I'll just run them together because it's close enough, right? That's the only reason. In terms of Cryo Launcher, I think Cryo Launcher is probably better than nades just overall. I think Cryo Launcher is just better. It has better base range, so you don't really need a range implant. You can skip the range implant and still do about just as much. Slightly lower DPS, but you do apply stasis, which makes it harder for people to get away after you start hitting them. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of a preference thing, which I like. Like, there's not one that's like strictly better than the other. Better preference.
Again, not super good at endgame, but you can definitely use...
Doesn't nade do more damage? Yeah, that's what I said. So, like, Cryo Launcher's, like, slightly lower DPS. But it has those other benefits, right? So you do slightly less damage, but you have more projectiles, which means theoretically you get through multi-layered shields slightly faster. Not a lot. It's literally one projectile difference, but then also the stasis effect and the fact that you don't really need... you have better base range. So... And the radius, like the radius is still the same between both of the weapons, so it's not like you're losing radius either. So it's a little bit depends, but Cryo 8 and Nade 16, best of both. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Use them in the mid game and have a lot of fun. They're not terrible at end game, but definitely not the greatest.
Yeah, the reason he's missing, by the way. Like I was mentioning before.
Panther with nade 10 and cryo 10. But
so like, let's watch his cursor. Watch his cursor.
Endgame, but...
So right now he's aiming at the hitbox of the enemy, because his cursor is hovering over the hitbox. It's technically on this obstacle. It's aiming at all these other things, but it's over the hitbox of the enemy. So the weapons should auto adjust to try to fire specifically at the enemy. But when he fires. He's not aiming at the enemy at all. He's firing at max range. His max range is 95. He's absolutely not going to hit any of those projectiles.
Them in the mid game and have a lot of fun.
He's firing.
They're not terrible.
Now he's firing at the wall.
Not super good at end game, but you can definitely use them in the mid game and have a lot.
He's firing off into the distance. Now his cursor is not on an enemy, and it's also not in the distance. It's now his cursor's over that little barrier that's right in front of him.
Fun.
What happens to it? It hits the barriers right in front of him.
Definitely not the greatest.
In order to get good performance at a nade and cryo launcher, you have to understand how the auto-adjusting aim works. You can get very good performance out of both of these, but you need to understand how the auto-adjusting works. What terrible player, Mikey says. I don't know if you're talking about BMP, but I think he just doesn't know how the auto-adjusting works, which a lot of people don't. I mean, people are sitting here. How many people here knew exactly how the cryo launcher, nade launcher, auto-adjusting aim thing worked? Like, you probably didn't. And so, like, I don't fault him for not knowing. And if you don't know, then the weapon's going to seem really, really bad, because it's almost impossible to use if you don't know about it. Fuse Mortar is really OP to deal emotional damage to your teammate.
So I wouldn't invest too heavily into them. Quantum gun prices have been reduced by 70%, so these are kind of like a high fire rate sustained sniper weapon like Gauss Rifle or Continuum, but they are not good. They're basically just only good if you really want to support your teammates and really play that support build on something like, I don't know, Solus or maybe Salvor. You could use them, but they aren't good. Don't get them for your hanger unless you want to use them for fun as a support build, because they do apply weaken and stasis. So if you hit someone, you can lock them down and then your teammate can take them out, but by themselves they are not good. They don't do... much damage at all. They're only okay against ML mods, but they're not going to take anyone out on their own. And
he is completely correct. I got the Quantum Gun 8s for my Orion. When was it? I don't even remember. It was a while ago. This was a while ago. I was like, you know what? I want a half decent weapon. I'm gonna get the Quantum Gun because I think it would be actually kind of decent at this SP, even on Orion. And I was in like, yeah, I mean, I was in tier 6 obviously because I had Orion. So, this was before Railgun was for credits, obviously. And I think it was potentially before. I think it was potentially before they repriced the rare stuff. So like I didn't even I couldn't have upgraded long arm either. Like I could have, but it would have cost me a fortune to do it. So I obviously wasn't going to do that. But I got Quantum Gun, you know, rank 4 Quantum Gun 8s on Orion. Sucks, dude. It's not good. It sounds like it could be okay, but it's just not, dude. I don't know.
Finally, fuse mortar prices have been reduced by about 65%. So the fuse mortars are just not really good. Also, the fuse mortar 10 was changed from 250,000 credits to 870 A coins. So all 3 of these cost A coins.
He is correct. I noticed that in the notes that that Plarium sent me. The only reason that I know what the prices of everything is because Plarium sent me like some. They sent me some notes. They're like, here's like the new prices of everything, and I was like, wait a second. Why is Fuse Mortar 10 A coins now? And they were like, yeah, that's intentional.
Mortars or fuse mortars just don't perform well against any type of mods, so I would definitely not recommend these.
It's not even just mods, it's the fact that anything can avoid fuse mortars so easily.
At endgame, I know, even on Orion, they're not good, so don't invest in the fuse.
Like, super early game, it's fine. And I mean, like, super early game. And who here remembers my free-to-play account super early on when I got those Fuse Mortar 8s in that freak-ass offer. Those did really well, even though they were only rank 3. The reason they did well is because with the exception of Slingshot, there's literally no fast mechs in the super early game. Like, there's no fast mechs in the super early game. Almost everything is exclusively very, very slow. Like Ares, Juggernaut, Paragon, Puma, like everything's slow. So with that SP, yeah, it was fine. But like after like 2000 SP, I think even those became completely obsolete.
Mortars. So there you go. That is every epic item, the new pricing, and whether I think you should get it or not. Again, thanks to Plarium for this great update. I hope they do legendary items next. And thanks to you for watching the video. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe for more videos like this. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. The epic price...
Oh, stop it. Well, there you have it, folks. The link to BMP's video is in the pinned comment, pinned message in the chat. You should go watch it. If you have questions, if you just got here, most of what he said is stuff that I agree with. I had some additional points to add to it, or like different little nuances, but the bulk majority, I'd say, is stuff that I mostly agreed with. So yeah, make sure to leave that video a like as well, and thank BMP for extending my stream by like freaking an hour or something like that.